Welcome back. This is Nick Freitas filling in for John Fredericks on the John Fredericks Show, WJFN. I will tell you what, as you look, we've been talking this whole show about what happens if we lose control and Democrats take over the General Assembly and control the executive and legislative branches of government starting next year. And one of the House races to watch is House race in the 28th District with Paul Milde, who's an outstanding candidate. This one is an absolute must-win for us. And it's not just a must-win because we need to retain the majority. It's not just a must-win also because Paul, I think, is a great candidate. It's also a must-win because his opponent, oh my gosh, some of the things this guy is suggesting is just incredible. But I'm gonna let Paul tell us a little bit more about himself. So, Paul, you on the line?
I'm on the line, Nick.
Hey, well, Paul, thank you very much for having us. Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, the 28th District, and again, why should people be focusing in on this race? Because I do believe yours is one of the most important to watch in the House of Delegates.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you kind of queued me up on the why it's important for the state and who retains the control of the House of Delegates. But for my area, which is half of Fredericksburg and half of Stafford, approximately, we've never seen anyone like this come in with these such far left policy proposals. And it's if you watch the debates between the different people vying for the Democratic nomination on the presidential level, he has checked the box on the far left, most far left of all of the issues you've heard. You could basically build him out of the policy positions of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and then a few extras like the reparations for slavery. We had not heard that one. That was new last week. He came out with being in favor of that. So he's just extremely far left. He's an abolish ICE guy. He's of course he'll support the Kathy Tran bill. That's where his money's coming from. He supports Beto and Beto's gun grab initiatives, and of course would have supported Northam's gun grab initiatives. He wants Medicare for all, and he likes Medicaid expansion and would like to build off of that, and doesn't want work requirements. And of course, he signed up for both new Green Deals, the state RGGI and on the federal level.
Oh my God!
And on a local level, he's come before our school board and spoke. The only minister that I believe of many ministers that spoke on this issue, he was the only one that spoke in favor of the transgender policy, which is going to result in us having to tear out the wall urinals and renovate our schools so that they're not gender specific, the bathrooms, and we don't have enough money even to pay our bus drivers and retain good teachers here.
Yeah. Well, this guy is not. I mean, man, God bless him for not hiding the ball. I mean, I'm dealing with an opponent right now that is constantly going around telling people. And look, you've got a close district. I mean, it's a pretty. It's definitely winnable. You can definitely win this. There's no question at all. I mean, we just need people to understand what's at stake here. But I mean, guys, my opponent gets up and says, "Oh no, I respect the Second Amendment." Now, she would vote for every single anti-gun bill that came across her way. But it sounds like your opponent is coming right out and trying to out Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, and he even throws a little bit of Obama in there sometimes. He had at one of our debates, he had the crowd chanting "Yes, we can" in Spanish. It was at a college campus, 95% Democrat. But yeah, he sees himself as a very, very progressive person, and I don't know if the Fredericksburg area is ready for him. But he almost beat Bob Thomas. Came within 70 or 80 votes. When the dust settled. Well,
and I think, and again, this is I think a perfect representation of what's going on here, because we do have a lot of situations. We do have a lot of situations in which I think people have become so accustomed to there being split government in Virginia, right? Because for the last decade, it's generally been, we've had, over a decade now, but. We've had, we'd have a Republican governor, but then the Democrats would control the Senate and the Republicans would control the House. And, maybe there was 2 years in there we had a Republican governor with very narrow margins in the Senate, and the Republicans controlled the House. And then now for the last, 6 years now, I think we've had Democrat governors and the Republicans in control of the legislature. And we've been able to get some good stuff through, but obviously when you have that kind of split government like that, there's not a lot of major stuff going through the pike. And I don't think they understand that the Democrats that, may have controlled the Senate, several years back or controlled the House of Delegates way back, that is not the same Democrats that are running this year. And your candidate seems like he's right on board with like Lee Carter.
He loves Lee Carter. That's funny that you would mention Lee Carter because he looks to Lee Carter for policy.
Oh my God!
And he said so. And when asked about some economic development proposals that lower some taxes for warehouse space, the only person that voted against that in the General Assembly on both sides for a wholesale reduction, wholesalers was Lee Carter. And when someone asked him would he support an expanded version of that, asked Josh Cole if he would support an expanded version for internet retail sales. When he found out Lee Carter had voted against the first one, he said, "Oh, well, I better check with Lee. He really does his homework."
Oh my God! I'll tell you what. There are not many. I don't know of a single colleague down there that is checking their votes with Lee Carter before they. Now, I will say this. Here's what I do respect about Lee Carter. I don't like any of his principles, but at least he's got some. Right? They're the wrong ones. He doesn't want to do it. Whereas a lot of other people, and he'll be vocal about it. Like I at least appreciate the fact that Lee Carter is a socialist, and he's a proud socialist. And I think we should give him a bullhorn and let him speak whenever possible. But I don't see too many people, again, checking their votes with Lee Carter, especially not from a district like yours. Yeah. So, I mean, and let me give you another example of Lee Carter. So the idea that your candidate or your opponent is essentially, cut from that cloth. We had a bill last year. You want to talk about like easy street, right? We had a resolution last year, a letter that we were signing, that we were sending up to the Department of Defense because we were trying to get. They were looking for a new spot where they were going to park some F-22s. We wanted it for our Air National Guard. It's great for our Guard. It's great for jobs within the community. It was just all around win-win, right? These F-22s can either be in Florida or they can be in Virginia. Let's have them in Virginia. We had 139 legislators out of 140 sign on to this. The only one that didn't was Lee Carter. And we assumed that it was because he didn't want Americans having, he didn't want Virginia having an unfair advantage over the communists with more F-22 fighters. But, it's just, so let me ask you this. What are some of the things, as you go around, as you knock on doors, as you talk to voters, I mean, clearly this guy thinks that we need to, be Venezuela, right? But what are your voters in your district? What are they passionate about, and what sort of changes do they want to see?
Well, there's two parts of that, but transportation is number one in Northern Virginia, where we 30 or 20-something thousand people out of Stafford and then more from Fredericksburg commute north to D.C. during the week, and so traffic is just, and then people that just want to get around town are usually stuck in some type of traffic that's a spinoff of the I-95 corridor. So traffic is number one, and I come to the table, of course, with more traffic or more traffic solution experience than almost anyone running, probably that's not an incumbent in the whole state, because I was on my MPO for 10 years, chairman 3 times, twice chairman of the Virginia Railway Express, and also the chairman of my infrastructure committee on the Board of Supervisors in multiple years. So we've done a great job. You'll see a lot of construction when you drive through here. And it takes a long time in government, you know that. Mm-hmm. But the money is there now, and the stuff's getting done, and we need to keep that kind of those improvements going.
Well, I think that's the sort of thing. I mean, again, there's a lot of different issues that motivate people when they go to the polls and whatnot. But I remember when I first got out of the military and I was living in Woodbridge, and I remember thinking to myself, I got to commute up to Tyson's Corner, but it's only 20 miles away. That, what is that? Maybe 30, 40 minutes? And 3 hours later. So I'll tell you what, I remember, growing up and being in the military and whatnot, and never really living in high traffic areas where people would talk about what an issue transportation was to them for politically. I was like, wow, that's oh my gosh. Do a little commuting on 95 and you learn why transportation is such a big deal. And then I think the most important thing too here is the fact that you have relevant experience dealing with this on a local level and a regional level in the area that is one of the most complex areas to deal with, because there's a number of situations when you're dealing with transportation, from effective funding to maintenance to property rights. And everything I've heard about the way you've addressed it is that you've been a force for addressing these issues in ways that make sense, that respect taxpayer dollars, that respect property rights, but still manages to get the job done.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, what are some others? So transportation is obviously a big one. I imagine, the economy? I mean, what are some other things that, again, when you knock on the door and you say, I'm Paul Milde, I'm running to be your delegate, you got any questions for me? What are they hitting you with?
Sure. So it's how that is. But when you go to the door, you sometimes you're at the swing voters' doors, and there's a lot of anti. People that are voting for my opponent are usually just anti-something. They're anti-Republican a lot of times, and I have to try to talk to them get them to listen to me about the issues that really matter with their quality of life. Now, as far as growing the economy, we also did a great job in Stafford on my board. And matter of fact, in 2014, we were number one in the Commonwealth for job growth.
Wow.
And that's a 5-year rolling VEC average. So we did top 10 on new job wages and new businesses. So that shows more and more people are working and living in Stafford. Lots of not just defense contracting, but lots of that too. So economic growth is something people after 10 years of growth are maybe starting to take for granted. But I still remember very vividly what it was like to struggle in my construction business, in 2006, 7, 8. So we talk about that a lot. And we also talk about education. Education comes up a lot, and you never can seem to satisfy the VEA and the SEA. But
no, you can satisfy the VEA. It's real simple. Totally get rid. If you want to satisfy the VEA, get rid of homeschooling, get rid of any vouchers, get rid of apprenticeship programs. Just put the VEA in charge of everything, and they'll be happy.
Yeah.
I mean, look, maybe you got a better relationship with them than I do.
I do not.
Yeah.
They endorse a ham sandwich over me.
Well, and I think part of that's too because of what you've done in construction, because what you've done not only in the government sector, and this is one thing that I know we hammer on a lot, and I've had bills passed on career technical education, on apprenticeship programs, and trying to get students into positions where they can not only learn a trade or a skill set, but they can actually learn from entrepreneurs. And I know advancing that kind of those kind of educational opportunities is important to you. And I have found that no matter where you go, no matter what district you go to in Virginia, because I've been all over the state campaigning before, and when it comes to education, one of the things that comes up repeatedly is teachers need to have more control over the classrooms. We don't need to be mandating everything from Richmond, and students actually need more options, and you're not going to get that if you're allowing everything to be controlled from Washington, D.C. and Richmond. So, what do you see as some of the areas that we can really zero in on that with trade schools, with providing more, educational opportunities that actually prepare someone to be successful in the economy, not just have a piece of paper?
Sure. The chambers of commerce in some areas, and I think the Virginia Chamber of Commerce have started to really take the initiative on getting kids into these programs where an employer like me or in any field, but it doesn't have to be construction or plumbing or welding or some of these things that are overlooked. It can be almost anything, but they work with the middle schools to get the kids introduced to different options early on to see, so the kids kind of know what they want to do. I mean, I have two children that are grown. They don't know. I'm not sure they know what they want to do still. They're 23 and 27. And we didn't program them that way. It was just, you were going to go to college. That was how we started the conversation, and that may not have been the right thing to do. And that's just one option. College is a great idea also. In Stafford, we had to fight, I hate to use the word fight, but debate with the school board about how much money went into administration and how much went into the classroom. That's why we did a lot of categorical funding from the Board of Supervisors. We didn't have a lot of tools at our disposal. But I really like what the Chamber's doing with encouraging businesses to work with the schools, the K through 12, in order to get people lined up and interested in careers ahead of time.
Yeah. No. Well, and again, I think that unfortunately, this is what happens when you give the government a little bit too much control and you start to let government incentivize behavior instead of allowing people to make their own choices, is that we got all these students, we raised a generation of kids to believe that all they needed to be economically successful was a college degree. We weren't picky about what it looked like, and so you had all this federal funding coming in to pay for college loans, and the next thing you know, you got students graduating out of college having been told their entire life that they were doing the right thing, and then they leave college with a degree that they can't get a job with. They've got $80,000 in student debt, and then you get a guy like your opponent or Bernie Sanders coming in with this kind of siren song of, well, we're gonna pay off your college.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. He also, of course, has promised that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem. This is one thing that I think is so important, and because it comes down to a basic level of fairness, right? And I think I've heard you talk about this before. It comes down to a basic level of fairness. When a politician says they're going to forgive student debt, they're not forgiving student debt. They're transferring it on to other people. And so now if you were a student that went into a trade school, or you were a student that chose a different life, they're not going to tell that student, they're not going to tell that blue-collar student, hey, guess what? You're going to pay the taxes for a decision somebody else made, which, oh, by the way, your government encouraged them to make it, set them up for failure, and is now going to pass off the cost onto you, and then so the politician can pretend like they're being a great guy. Exactly. And it's just so intellectually dishonest.
It is.
Well, I'll tell you, again, Paul, look, we want to be able to help you. I want everyone to understand. I want everyone to understand just how critical this race is, because we've done a lot of research. I know we've looked at different things. We really wholeheartedly support Paul because not only does he have the right, I think, political philosophy when it comes to just, again, understanding the proper role of government. And he's done it at the local level, which I will tell you right now is the hardest. I believe it is definitely the hardest level to serve at, because it's the closest to the people, but I think it does the best in keeping you humble. And if there's one thing that politicians in Richmond need a lot more of, it's humility with respect to what government should do and what government can't do. And I think Paul's been successful at the local level. He's proven it to his constituents there. But if you're not paying attention, if you live in this district, you're not paying attention to this race, I'm telling you, there is a huge contrast here. The contrast here is probably more stark than in the vast majority of races you'll see across the Commonwealth. So if you want to be represented in a way that respects your individual rights to live the way you want, to run your business, to be successful, if you want practical solutions, practical economic solutions, transportation solutions that are actually sustainable, right, then Paul's your guy. But yeah, if you want a Green New Deal where we outlaw fossil fuels and ban air travel, okay, well yeah, his opponent might be for you, right? If you want to turn the Commonwealth into an impoverished, regulation heavy, tax and spend sort of environment, then his opponent is definitely up your alley. But I think Paul's done the hard work. Paul, where can people find out more about you? Where can they contribute to your campaign?
Thanks, Nick. My website is just my name, Paul Milde, and that's last name is spelled M-I-L-D-E, like Delta Echo. So Paul Milde at paulmilde.com is my email, and paulmilde.com is our website. Okay, great. And of course, you're on all the Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff too, right? Yes, sir. All right, so make sure you follow Paul on Facebook, follow him on Twitter. Make sure that you go on his website, check out his website, and donate. And if you can't donate, spend some time, knock on some doors, help them out, give them some encouragement, tell your friends. If you're going to vote, you better bring 3 or 4 friends, because this is an off-year election. And I will guarantee you right now, if you're listening to this show, then you're someone that is concerned about what's going on in the Commonwealth, you're concerned about policy, and you're probably the political friend in your group of friends. And so a lot of your buddies are probably waiting for your yard sign to go up, right? Waiting for them to put Paul Milde's yard sign in their yard so they know, oh, there's an election this year and I got to vote. So you need to get out there and make sure that you're telling people about what a stark contrast there is between Paul and his opponent this year. Get out there, provide whatever support you can, make sure you vote. Paul, thank you very much for being on. And again, let's keep in touch. Let us know how we can help in the future. Absolutely, Nick. Thanks for having me on. All right, you take care.